Here's Jason Martinez and Brian Smith on the BetRivers.com Flyers Broadcast Network.
That's right. It's time for Philadelphia Flyers hockey as the Flyers' final home game of the calendar year 2023 happens tonight. The Holiday Spectacular at Wells Fargo Center. Unfortunately, yours truly couldn't be there. Feeling a little under the weather. Decided not get all the boys sick. So I stayed home in the home studio. We got Chris Terrian and Brian Smith, though, boots on the ground.
Do you have a Yule log going?
I'm not going to answer that in the interest of everybody. But it is the final home game of the year. And, boy, it's weird because, before this season started, we thought, the calendar year of 2023 in total would have been one we'd want to forget. But the Flyers are certainly ending it on a much better note than they started it, Bundy.
Well, there's no doubt. I mean, it's been a complete reversal, essentially. I mean, when you look at, I know we're going to talk about it a little bit, but when you look at past seasons compared to this, I mean, this has been an absolute joy. It's been a joy to come down here. People are happy. There's a smile on everyone's faces. The Flyers are back. I mean, in terms of what we want to see in our building, what we want to see from our team, the team that I played for many years. So, I mean, this is just a total change, and I can't help but be happy for the fans. They certainly deserve it. The Flyers, you can have down years, and that happens. We said it before. But you can't make your organization nosedive down with the team. And unfortunately, that's what happened. And it took guys that played here, guys that understood the culture, to be positioned appropriately and bring back the spirit of the Philadelphia Flyers. And that's happened. The winning will take care of its place. That's take care of itself. That's what a process it takes. And you have to believe in Danny and Jonesy that the right players will be here. But in terms of what you want to see and in terms of a fun hockey team to watch every night, you're getting it. And I implore everybody out there, if you're listening, come down, come check it out, and then let me know after what you think, because it's been an awful lot of fun to be at the buildings most every night this year.
And we've talked about it, how this particular group isn't necessarily the long-term answer. This success that this group is having might be a one-year only thing. It might have to take a little bit of a step back, but the thing is that they're not going to stand pat, I don't think, with this group moving forward. There's going to be obviously some guys coming in that are already part of the organization. They're just not in the pro ranks yet, and then there'll be some guys going out for assets or whatnot. But it's an opportunity to enjoy this group while they're doing what this group is doing.
There's no doubt, and I think that's a fair comment. And we've talked about it. I mean, there's going to be guys on this team, and I said it the other day on Snow the goalie. There might even be 8 to 10 guys that maybe one of them, a couple of them, you've really come to like. But for the betterment of the team and for the obvious reasons of having a good, solid playoff roster that gives you a chance to win for 5 to 8 years, that's what you want. And that's what they're trying to get to. And yes, there's been some guys that have had really, really great rises this year. They've stepped out of their own shoes perhaps and played above and beyond what we thought they were capable of. And I think if you look at it, Jason and Brian, in a sense, look at the Devils went from 60-some points 2 years ago to 112 last year. And you know what? That caught fire for a season. It worked. And now they're kind of battling things again, right? Guys are maybe not as familiar with who they were last year. They tried to change. Things came too easy for them. They're having goaltending issues, some injuries. So what Smitty says is true. That's why you have to keep rolling the roster over certain pieces, not all of it. You keep the guys that you feel are going to be part of it, and you move forward with it. But it can be a one-year thing if you keep the same personnel. And I'm imploring people, just stay patient, because there's still a lot more good to come out of what's here on this team and what will be here in the future.
Bundy, probably still the biggest changes year to year isn't the record, the fact that they're considerably a better team than they were last year at this time. But it's where the changes that were made within the organization. I want to ask you to put your helmet back on as a player. When you played for this team, you saw a lot of guys come and go over the years as teammates. But as a player, you're well aware of the organizational DNA and what this city is all about. And, I mean, maybe that's the biggest thing, Bundy, that they've gone back to their organizational DNA. They're not going to go out there and beat everybody up. It's not the 70s anymore. But they have an organizational DNA that they lost for a while. And they, I know that was Jonesy and Danny's, job number one, and Dan Helferty was to recapture the organizational DNA.
Well, I mean, and that's what I'd beat a hammer to it for 3 or 4 years. And, and again, and I knew that what was here wasn't working. I mean, they weren't there's a history to this, and that you learn when you become a Flyer as a fan. I mean, you see the passion with the fans every night. And that is absolutely something. There's been a little subtle changes. And I know that doesn't mean winning Stanley Cups, but it means that everybody's won together again. And when you get good, when the team is better, that's when you want everybody ready to roll. Has been so refreshing from a lot of standpoints. First of all, nobody expected it, including myself. I did not factor in probably the veteran leadership coming back. I didn't know how good Coots would be because I know my own back. It's not been good coming off a back injury, and so I just went on my own assessment from my own bad back. But there's been a lot of good things, and he's held up well. There's been a lot of guys stepping up, and I think that really has been a good formula this year. Torts has done a great job getting guys to buy in, as painful as it is sometimes, but he has done that.
I'm not sure that a lot of folks around the team expected it, to be honest. It feels like they've caught lightning in a bottle a little bit just with the way this group has gelled. I found it interesting, Jason. We were talking the other night about Ryan Poehling. He had the 2 goals. That last time he had 2 goals, Nick Delorier was on his line. And I got to wonder if, maybe that wasn't part of the reason they brought him in. Maybe if D'Lo knew him or something like that. But whatever it was, the whole group has just really come together in a very unusual manner. I'm not sure I've ever seen anything like it before. And it just lends itself, I think, well to the way Torts wants them to play. They want them to play a brand of hockey where they're laying out on the line for each other every single night. And I think those 2 things have just jived really well, which is, again, another reason why I'm not sure it's sustainable past this year, but I think it might work out for the rest of this one.
One thing that we've talked about all year, guys, is how difficult it is for the Flyers to win games. And what's made it easier is their semblance and their unity together. They're doing it as a full team. And it's not like one line's been good and there's been 3 bad. There's getting consistent play right across the lineup. And that makes a huge difference. But, Smitty, I totally agree with you. I mean, it's very hard to sustain this. And, again, why do I say that? Because when you really dig into the meat and potatoes of the Flyers team, outside of Konechny, really, maybe Owen Tippett on the rise, there's not a whole lot of pure goal scoring. Right, where you have other teams like a Stamkos or Kucherov. You can go with Nathan McKinnon. Yeah. I mean, there's a lot of guys. You have to watch out for them every day. The thing that's unique with the Flyers, and I'm just putting myself in a defenseman's role where you shut down guys, there's not really one line that you can say this is going to be the line tonight that we have to really focus on because you don't know who's really coming at you. That's sometimes a problem in and of itself. And that's one of the reasons I think as well that the Flyers have played so well because they've been so consistent in the way that they've approached it. They've had a lot of good individual efforts. See, the penalty kill's been better. Amazing they have what they're doing with that power play. Because the power play has done nothing to help them pretty much the whole year. And that does lend to my point about the skill. When you don't have the skill, it's going to really show and rear its head on your power play. And that's exactly what's happened.
Yeah, like if you're facing Boston, you're going, okay, if we can just control Pasternak and Marchand, we'll let those other clowns try and beat us. We'll roll the dice with that, but we're going to key on those guys. You're right. You don't know who it's going to be kind of rising up to grab the game that night.
And it's different. Yeah, and it's different too, Jace, because it's not like you got like a McKinnon line and then another super skill line and another skill line. It's 3 kind of like 4 lines. Guys just keep rolling at you, coming at you, getting a forecheck, trying to keep the puck. And that's really good stuff. It's really hard. But you're not loaded with skill. You're loaded with work coming at you. And that's the difference with this Flyer team right now.
Yeah, and sometimes you got to just be able to win a laugher. Like just go out and outskill a team and, not have to work real hard to get it, especially when you're playing 82 games. When we come back, we're going to take our first break. When we come back, we're going to look at the difference between the Flyers through 31 this year and the Flyers through 31 last year. And then we're also going to look at this game tonight as Sam Ersing gets his 5th straight start. Flyers 13-3-2 since that San Jose loss. That's amazing. We're back after this. It is Flyers game day. Jason Martinez, Chris Terry, and Brian Smith on the BetRivers.com Flyers Broadcast Network. We are back as the Flyers get set to take on the Nashville Predators. Sam Ersson looks like Ersson versus Soros tonight. Now, Carter Hart is backing up tonight. Is that correct?
Yes.
Okay.
He was on the ice for warm-up.
As we say it, yes, it is.
Okay. The old notion is that if you're well enough to back up, you're probably well enough to play. But they just want to give them the extra day with the third of 3 and 4 and the back-to-back tomorrow, which will be against the Detroit Red Wings. Last game before the Flyers take the NHL Christmas holiday break and the freeze that comes with it. Buddy, let me ask you about this because, I'm comparing the record of 31 last year to the first 31 this year. Last year, they had a record of 10, 14, and 7. They gave up 100 goals, and they scored. Okay, let me try that again. They scored 74 goals, and they gave up 100. This year, they have a record of 18, 10, and 3. They've scored 93 goals, given up 81. So they've scored 19 more goals, and they've given up 19 less goals. I guess when you do that, that's why you see the flip in the record.
Yeah, and you know what? Like, if you look at the standings, I don't know if I said this before, but if you look at the end of the year, there's 8 teams that end up being a plus on the year for the goal differential, and that last 8th seed might be +1. But if you look at the 9th seed down, every one of them is a minus. Every one of them. So, again, I know I'm not a big stat guy. That is the simplest stat you can find. If you have more goals than you're scored against, you're going to make the playoffs.
That's staggering to me, too, because 19 more goals than last year, yet last I checked, which was before the Jersey game, the Flyers were 21st in the league in goals scored. So that tells you how few goals were being scored last year, I think, right, Jay? I mean, that's
my
nuts.
gosh, yeah.
I mean,
Yeah, and the goaltending's been far better this year,
right?
Too. I mean, much. I mean, there's been a lot of 10 bell saves.
Yeah, and defend, far less. I mean, the Flyers off the rush, that's been the biggest difference in allowing them to defend less. But I mean, when you're looking at 38 total goals that you're not giving up and 19 more that you're scoring, and just 30, and mind you, this is just 31 games. That's a huge number, and it's astounding. I remember Doug Waits last year, Bundy, when he was the head coach.
The Islanders.
With the Islanders, they gave up the most goals in the league, and the people were going nuts on the island, going, we don't have any goaltending. They came back the next year with the same 2 goaltenders and Barry Trotz. Totally different environment. You know how they defend. They shaved 102 goals off year to year, and their goaltenders won the Jennings Trophy for the lowest goals against average in the league.
Dougie Waite liked to go all offense. Yeah, all offense.
Yep. they didn't defend a whole heck of a lot. But maybe that's the biggest difference is that this team defends less. They're defending better when they do. And they've gotten timely goaltending as well. And I still don't, as good as the goaltending has been, I still don't feel like that's been the kind of is that the biggest factor to why they are where they are? Because you got 2.
I mean, that's been one. I mean, I think there's been some good play. I think Sanheim's really had a good start to the year. He's been up and down a little bit at times, but for the most part, he's taken a huge step. But systemically, the defense, the actual defensive unit has been great, coupled with some awesome goaltending. There's still too many times during a game where the other team has too long possession time in the Flyers zone, and I think it becomes too easy sometimes. But again, when I look at the possession, if it's outside of the dots, then that's you can play like that sometimes. I'd like to see them seal it a little bit more in the D zone to clamp it, lock it down, and then get it out more efficiently. But sometimes it just doesn't happen, and that's the way it goes sometimes.
That's a concept, too, that I think might be lost on the average fan is the concept of spending less time defending. That was something that even Chuck Fletcher was saying 2 years ago. The Flyers were spending way too much time defending. And from a player perspective, I'm just curious as to how that's best described to the casual fan that, if you're always in your defensive zone, it's going to be a lot harder to keep the puck out of your net in general than when you're not in it as much, right? I mean, it comes down to that.
100%. And I mean, it's a lot. It takes a lot more effort. It's a lot harder to defend. It's a lot easier to play offense when you have the puck. So, yeah, I mean, getting it sealed, getting the puck out of the zone, going back in transition is big. If you can stop the puck from getting in the neutral zone, that's another huge thing. But, yes, spending less time in your own zone, hounding down pucks, trying to chase the play, will certainly give your team better chances in hockey games and be fresher in the third period.
Bundy, one of the things we saw in the game against Nashville, in Nashville, when they were on that road trip, it was the final game of that road trip, and they ended up losing it in overtime. It was kind of that weird goal that leaked through Sam Emerson, laid behind him, and I think it was Philip Forsberg went in and knew that it was loose, ref didn't blow the whistle and put it in. But Saros was very good in that game.
Yeah.
And he's listed at 5'11". If he's 5'11", I'm 6'2", which is not the case. He's probably more like 5'9", 5'10", which is very small by today's NHL goalie size comparables. With a goalie like that, you want to put a lot of traffic around him and really, because he's a guy he's really explosive in his movements. So how do you kind of disrupt that? Do you put guys just all over the edge of the crease? What do you do to disrupt a goalie that more flies around and there's not much of a just get into a spot and have it hit him?
Yeah, I mean, and he's also competitive. Like, he's small, but he does compete hard in the crease area. I mean, again, like, not like unlike any other goaltenders. I mean, if you want to score, you got to get into that paint area with being clean, not being dirty, clipping them. But the more distraction you can have around those defense and then around the goaltender, that's what it comes down to. Getting shots through is so key, but then being able to stand in there and battle for those rebounds and find the loose pucks. He's a competitive goalie. He's a really, really good goaltender. And you're going to have to outcompete him in this hockey game here tonight.
We've talked about that too, Jason and I, and just in terms of the more confusion there is in the zone, the better your chances are of scoring. And that's whether it's, you cross pass on the zone entry and you send the D going one way or the next, or you get in a guy's kitchen, I think. And I think we saw in Nashville that's what it takes against this guy is, you can't make his life easy. You've got to, at least get down there and annoy him a little bit.
You got to swarm bodies at it. When there's pucks, you got to have those two guys going hard, battling, looking for those loose pucks, and then staying in it. He doesn't freeze it. Keep battling until he does. But, he's a guy that he's a very, very good goaltender. And he's a guy that I think is kind of the lifeblood of Nashville. They have good players, Forsberg, Roman Josi. But I think this is a team that feeds a lot of off of what their goaltender does and the quality saves he makes for them. So make life miserable on them, like Smitty said. It's not indifferent. And as Tort said, find a way to win every night. If that's what it takes, going after their goaltender, making life difficult, then so be it.
Yeah, it's a funny thing. They go from a guy in Pekka Rinne, who was like the Jolly Green Giant, to this UC Saros, but equally both insanely competitive, which is why they've been successful. Real quick, before we take our next break, Bundy, Roman Josi, you just mentioned his name. Boys, he's fun to watch. He's just so smooth. What do you think of his game from a defensive standpoint and what he can do in activating offensively?
You said it, really smooth. I mean, just a great puck handler, very calm under pressure, gets his shots through from the point. Very subtly good in his own zone, good stick. He's a catalyst. I mean, he's another guy that gets up the ice, creates that extra layer of offense as he joins the play or sometimes leads the play. But he's like a forward in a lot of ways. He'll be up the ice. He'll be up in the corner in front of the net trying to make a quick play. He's a guy I always say, if you can get body on him, get as much body on him as you can. Dump the puck in his corner, soft dumps, and get right in after him.
Does he remind you of anybody from your day?
Eric Desjardins.
That's kind of what I was thinking, like body-wise, the way he moves on the ice, and the way he migrates with the puck in the offensive zone to the high slot. Rico did that a lot as well, didn't he?
He did. I think Josi, though, just the way his body is, looks a little smoother than Rico, just the way he does it. But, I mean, listen, you're talking about Eric Desjardins, one of the greats, so you're not going to get me to say anything more than that.
Well, we know why your back hurt, because you carried Rico for all those years.
All those many, many years.
Let's take our final timeout. We'll look at the Flyers line combinations and changes to the game day roster in just a moment. It is Flyers game day. Jason Martinez, Chris Terry, and Brian Smith on the BetRivers.com Flyers Broadcast Network.
HIMS.com/joy. That's HIMS.com.
Stand by for return.
JOY.
This is the Fanatic Flyers pregame show on 97.5 The Fanatic.
Flyers and Predators tonight at Wells Fargo Center. Final home game of the year 2023. Flyers will return home coming up on January 4th against Columbus. They have a little Alberta Clipper trip where they'll see, well, they'll go to Vancouver as well. Vancouver, Seattle, Calgary, and Edmonton.
I'm so excited.
Back home. Yeah, it's a heck of a trip. But really, that's the last.
It is the last
trip
one.
of the year.
Yeah, I think so. There's a Minnesota, Winnipeg, St. Louis trip in January, but it's nowhere near as long. So, you know,
Winnipeg looks exactly like it did when I left in the late 90s.
Yeah, probably. Yeah.
It's the same town.
I'm unfortunately, as much as I'd love to check it out, we've got a Wings game that night, so I'm actually going to skip that game. But I'm sure we'll get some reports from up there on how things are going in Winnipeg.
Oh yeah,
can't wait.
It's one of the vacation destinations in the middle of winter.
Winterpeg.
Yes. Here's the Flyers line combinations. Sean Couturier centering Tyson Forster and Travis Konechny, Ryan Poehling, Joel Farabee, and Cam Atkinson. It's Morgan Frost, Owen Tippett, and Bobby Brink. And then the fourth line is Scott Lawton centering Nick Deslauriers and Garnet Hathaway. What line you looking to step up tonight? But you just said a little bit ago, you don't have one line you can key on, but what is one line that you think you should keep an eye on tonight?
I'd like to see the Frost line do a little bit more. I mean, the last couple of games, I know Tippett had the OT winner, but it was a 3-on-3 situation. 5-on-5, I'd like to see them take a little bit bigger bite of this apple. I think they have to. I like the fact that they kind of leave those guys alone right now, and I was saying the same thing. But Morgan Frost at the same time, I'd like to see more production out of those guys.
The D pairs are Cam York and Travis Sanheim, Nick Seeler and Sean Walker. Mark Stahl comes in for Igor Zamula, and he'll play alongside Rasmus Ristolainen. As we mentioned before, Sam Ersson gets to start. What is it, Bundy, about that D pair of Walker and Seeler that's working? Because I know that some of the advanced analytics, I don't know a ton about that stuff, but those two have really good numbers league-wide.
They are consistent together, and they have good chemistry. That's really what it is. I mean, when you look at the two of them, they cover up well for one another. They make it pretty easy on themselves. They don't extend shifts. They don't try to do things that they're not good at. They do things that they are good at. Keep it simple. Walker, I think, has really been good in terms of moving the puck up the ice. I think Sealer's been really good blocking shots, playing hard defense, determined minutes in the zone. I don't have anything bad to say about the guys. Those guys, I haven't had anything bad to say about those guys all year long.
Yeah, I mean, they just seem peanut butter and jelly just seem to work together. I think when you have that one guy that likes to get up the ice, the other guy's got to be that willing defender. And when the guy who likes to get up the ice knows that coverage is there, then he can fully commit to it mentally, I assume.
Yeah, and you know what, Jason? You said kind of like me and Desjardins. And in a lot of ways, that's what that relationship was, right? Like, we gave him the liberty to get up the ice, and I'd certainly be glad to stay back if it gave our team a chance offensively. It works, and I don't want to say compare Sean Walker to Eric Desjardins or anything, but it's a similar type of thing, and you have to have that chemistry together with your partner, and they have great chemistry together.
And that's another thing, too, I think that was a surprise, because there's no way that anybody thought that this was going to work out the way that it has. John Tortorella has said he didn't even know who Sean Walker was when he came over in that trade, and Seeler is you got to give him credit. He's clawed himself into an NHL career after looked like he might have been done at the NHL level, but he comes here and has found a spot for himself, and it's just two guys that, like you said, have worked well together.
A lot of jobs in the NHL for guys if you want to play and compete every night, and Nick Seeler certainly carved that out for himself. He's been nothing short of solid, and he does all the dirty little things on the ice that you really need. You don't notice it, but it's noticed by your teammates, and it's noticed on the stat sheet that really doesn't show every night. Blocking shots, taking hits to make a play, being tough in front of the net, defending hard, and those are really good things to see.
Buddy, how important is them for the Flyers to just wrap up this year, the calendar year, on a good note? Since that loss on November 7th, against the Sharks, where the Sharks got their first win. It was embarrassing, and it was a fork in the road of which way they were going to go this year. They're 13-3-2. It's the best record in the NHL. The opponent tonight, 13-6 since November 10th as well. But just to finish out this year and put yourself in a good position to start the new year 2024.
You know what? Just keep doing what they've done. They've made incredible strides since that San Jose game. And, that was one where you'd say, oh, man, like, how do you lose to a team that lost by 10 goals twice in a row? And the Flyers lost to them. But they won the 2 huge games on that road trip. Anaheim was playing much better than LA, of course, is LA. And they've really found a lot of cohesiveness since then. Consistent every night. Gives themselves a chance. They've come back from deficits. It's been a totally different team. And they're going to want to keep it up here tonight. This is a game you don't want to lose tonight.
Yeah.
The Flyers come out and execute. Nashville coming off a bad loss at home, so they're going to have to be ready for this. It'll be a battle.
Yep. Good game coming up tonight. We've got Tim Saunders and Todd Fedoruk standing by with the countdown to face-off, and that's followed by all the first period action between the Flyers and the Predators. You've been listening to Flyers Game Day on the BetRivers.com Flyers Broadcast Network.